Hi, I'm Lisa Anderson, president of LMA Consulting Group and also president of the ASCM Inland Empire chapter. We are thrilled to be here today to talk about a hot topic, to be sure, in our Adapting Supply Chains webinar series. We're going to have a monthly webinar with a series of experts. And today we're looking forward to talking about AI. So what could be more relevant and in the news than AI? So our speaker today is Bruce Hoffman. He's going to be talking about leveraging AI in manufacturing and supply chain. Bruce is a fractional chief technology officer and efficiency expert who specializes in helping small and medium-sized business leaders navigate the complexities of modern technology. With over 20 years of experience, he's consistently optimized AI and technology strategies to streamline operations. Now I lost my place. Oh, streamline operations, enhance efficiency, and boost profitability. His passion lies in transforming businesses by aligning technological solutions with strategic goals, ensuring that every initiative runs smoothly and contributes to the bottom line. In essence, and he's certainly been quite the busy beaver as it comes to AI and staying on the leading edge. So we're excited to hear what you have to share with us, Bruce. And well, I'll say this up front, but if you have questions, put them in the chat. I'll ask them every now and then. And we will also, have a bit of Q&A at the end. And so we look forward to hearing about it, Bruce. So go ahead and we'll get started.
Okay. Thanks everyone for being here, and thanks for allowing me to present. Let me go ahead and share. Right. Have you seen the share? Yeah.
Yep, we're good.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay, so here today, talk to you about AI in manufacturing and distribution. It's an interesting topic as for quite a while, AI has been used in many different ways, and the current knowledge and craze that's been happening kind of opens up the world of revisiting AI across the board, from the traditional AI that I'm going to talk about, and generative AI, which is the kind of the current that brought everybody around. I'd like to start with a little just fun thing from my avatar, so you can get a chance to see just a little intro that I had put together on it. And I'm going to run that real quick.
What if your team could spend less time on paperwork and more time delivering real results? In manufacturing and distribution, time is of the essence. Yet, every day, precious hours are wasted due to repetitive tasks, endless data entry, and outdated processes. That's where artificial intelligence is a game changer. AI can automate routine tasks, streamline workflows, and free your teams to focus on high-impact work, the work that grows your business, not just sustains it. Imagine a world of work where machines handle the routine and humans handle the important work. Maximize your productivity, reduce your operational costs, improve your accuracy. It's not the future, it's now. Discover how your business can work smarter, not harder.
That's just me using my avatar with a little script as an intro to the whole concept. And if anybody's interested in avatar creation, you can follow up with me, as a follow-on. So quickly, I just wanted to share our approach. So Optimize Pros was really created to look at efficiencies in the mid-market and seeing where process management, but along with AI and automation, could really be valuable for the companies. And it's pretty straightforward. We do a process assessment, whether or not we use tools or interviews. There's a combination depending upon the company. We work to prioritize what are the most important processes that have the greatest opportunity. We build out process maps and provide insights and recommendations. And then on the back end, this slide is an older version of it. We can run the implementation of everything that needs to be done from a project to whether or not we are providing an automation platform that we're building something on, or whether it's a custom software solution, which some of these that I'm going to show are. And then just what's interesting about this slide itself, it's just a set of views from one of our tools where we can put agents on machines on different people's computers, so we can actually watch the process and see how things are being done across the board. And if anybody's interested in the future, I have a demo that I put together on this tool that basically it does automated discovery. Okay, so I'm just going to jump right into the use cases, unless anybody has any questions ahead of that. And I don't see anything in the chat, so I think
Not yet.
okay. Okay. All right. So we have a number of areas where early on we were doing AI-powered solutions, and what's interesting is that computer vision, which is used in many AI solutions in the manufacturing floor and the distribution warehouses, has come a long way. We used to try to use it to look at things and train models, and it was okay. But now the accuracy has come in very, very high. And so this case was for a high volume bottle bottling plant that basically had trouble every time there was a bottle that didn't get labeled correctly. They might not notice it right away, and that what would happen is a bunch of things would get done. They'd have to stop the line and go fix it. What we put together was basically trained a set of models that were able to look through the camera and know which type of labels were being produced. And then depending upon what they would see, it could kick out just a few if there was just a temporary problem. But if it was significant, it basically recommends to the operator to stop the line right away. It could be automated to stop the line so that it doesn't produce. But at the time when we were working it, we found that it was kind of best to, tell people. And so, we could detect things like, smudges, misprints, incorrect information, positioning errors, all of that is visible in the flow. And, we did a 3-month trial period. We noticed that we had an overall incorrect label usage decreased by 10%. Manual inspection time was almost completely eliminated, and it increased the overall throughput. And it's just an area where, again, we were able to use computer vision algorithms and a combination of image classification and object detection. So these are things where you're able to really look and see what's happening. I have one other case in here that I'll probably skip because it's very similar, but did the same kind of thing for a tire manufacturer where same thing, we trained models looking at, how the tires were supposed to look. It could check them at different portions of the line as they were coming through. So it could catch things earlier in the process rather than at the end. And again, it was all about sort of giving information back to the operational teams so that they could either stop or make changes while the line was going. And I'll just continue to go through the cases unless I hear any questions. Okay, so the next one, this one's kind of a bigger deal, much bigger, more complex system, but much bigger value add. So This company basically was producing, doing extrusion on plastic. So basically, the beads are getting melted and it's putting it into the flow. Some chemicals are added, temperatures are adjusted, and the different outputs or the different items are getting created. And what was happening is that it was completely reactive. They would see some of the output with lumps or clumps that had been created, and it would basically cause them to stop the line, which was really kind of major downtime for the systems. And each downtime could cost them anywhere from $250,000 up to $1 million, depending on how long they had to be down for. And what they came to us and said, hey, listen, if you can give us a prediction on when this is going to happen and do it even just a few minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes ahead, advance of when it's going to start, we could actually stop, make the changes, and then be able to move forward without, losing production and downtime for different days. And so what we did is we got them to give us 3 years of historical data on the actual operation of the machines, all of the temperature data, all the mix data, everything that we could see or they could provide, and then we could go through with the experts and kind of comb manually initially through it to say, okay, when we find these conditions, lumps are likely to occur. And we got pretty good at it. It's about a 90+% accuracy on the predictions and basically early warnings. And we even created a simulation tool to give them sort of what if for different things they were going to produce to determine if it was actually going to create a problem in the line. And so, the end result is, through that analysis and providing them the data, they were able to make the corrections. They are able to make the corrections on a regular basis. They ended up with 26 additional days of prime production, which is really defined as, days where they didn't have downtime. And in their estimate, they've got about $11 million a year savings in operational costs. And this was no small project. It took us about 6 months to do the analysis and another 6 months to implement the first version of it. The cost was significant to actually do this, but it paid for itself. The ROI was at least 4 times what the project cost. And within whatever the second year of usage, they were able to gain that full set of improvements. Hopefully this is, the kind of thing that's you're thinking will be valuable, for your teams.
Yeah,
So this
no,
next one,
absolutely.
this,
It's a good start. And if you want to know, if you want them to expand upon, the information or, tell us more, just write it in the chat or we'll get to questions. But no, it's good. Yeah, it's great. Keep
yeah, I
going.
mean, awesome. So
I just
yeah,
want to
and
get like several ideas because like the idea here that Bruce is sharing is there's a lot of uses for AI in manufacturing and supply chain. We couldn't possibly cover them all, but we're going through like several examples so that we can, get some ideas and spur our thinking.
great, great, thank you. And this is the tire one that I talked about. I won't go through it so much as to say as that it really was a savings in the inspection time was sort of the key element, and it went from several minutes down to about 30 seconds per tire. So it was kind of a really good, excuse me, way to get from point A to point B much faster. And again, everything was human visually reviewed, and then we moved it to computer vision reviewed. So it's good. It's a good way to think about, hey, if I can look at something with a camera, the the models that have been built and the camera quality has improved so much that it really can see things better than a human can. And it's something that's available, 24 hours a day. It never looks away or gets distracted. I think that's sort of the other key element of using computer vision in these places. By the way, it does end up with false positives and false negatives. So you still have to monitor, these are not a set it and forget it type of situation, because every time you have something new, either in any of these ones I've talked to, you need to actually look and see whether or not your models are working for that current situation that has been changed on the floor. Okay, so I'm going to switch gears a little bit into something that's a bit different, that has a little demo that goes with it. And this is really around helping in the sales process. So, what actually happened was there's a bearings company, based out of Florida, and they've got about 20,000, different SKUs in the catalog. And literally, there was a senior expert who everybody relied on to, and when the training would kind of be done, it went from like, you know, it would take about a year and a half for somebody to actually be good enough to do orders themselves without the help of the senior expert. Well, he suddenly passed away, and now they were in a situation where they were making mistakes. There was kind of a lot of activity that was really, problematic. And that's when they kind of approached and said, "Hey, how can you help?" And it's kind of interesting because similar to these other things, it was going back and looking at history and saying, here's all the things that have been done. Here's all the notes. Here's emails that we need to kind of look at from the back and forth. Here's the catalog. And so what we were able to do in this case is we built AI assistants. And it was really kind of two sides. There's an agent that agent's job is to learn everything about the product catalog. And then there's another agent that basically learned every use and how order decisions are being made. And then those are put together underneath an agent whose job is, hey, when I get an order that comes in, the goal is to actually place that order right here and now, and basically give all the options back to the salesperson that they can now share back to the person who was requesting, with sort of a low, middle, and high um, priced solution. And again, I have a little kind of demo explaining this right after. I think that was interesting that you have situations where there's a lot of knowledge in somebody's brain, and we talk about this a lot. We talk about this in legal with like the young associates coming into the law office, and then they don't know enough to actually to work well, so they work with the more senior associates, and they might work with the managing partner, and so all of this information is constantly having to be talk through. So like the general idea around these kind of solutions is creating agents that consume all of the information and then allow you to ask questions, from it. It can be from employee manuals is one that we end up, working on. Again, this one's kind of interesting because it was very specific. Hey, there was a set of knowledge that we had to teach the agents how to get smart with so that the salespeople could work through it on the other side. And I'm trying to think, it's really these kinds of solutions end up being transformational. It went from chaos now to being able to really, run and operate even better than they could in the past. And one of the key elements, and again, I'll play this demo shortly, um, was a new employee onboarding has been reduced, from maybe like 18 months that he talks about down to 2 months to be able to do that same capability. Still, it's not instant, but here, let me go ahead and play the demo for you, and you'll see what I mean.
To share with you how KnowledgeNet's AI assistant is helping an industrial supply sales team, offering real-time recommendations on helping guide customers in selecting among 20,000 different options. So as you continue watching, you'll see exactly how it works. This is the business problem that the AI assistant is helping solve. There's 20,000 different options. The inside sales team needs to provide real-time recommendations. And because there's so many options, it takes 2 years to be comfortable enough for an inside salesperson to provide those real-time recommendations. Their AI assistant solves this problem.
The real challenge is the learning that a sales rep needs to have in any company, yet they don't know enough to really very quickly ascertain the problem, find the solution, convince the customer. So this AI assistant not only brings the product information, but provides a huge amount of confidence to expedite that training process from what we found was about an 18-month onboarding process down. We believe this is just going to be a couple of months before somebody could really become effective. And even to make it more complex, there could be 10 possible bearings that are appropriate for that customer with that size. So what we did, and we're going to share this when we start this up, is we had took all of the potential opportunities of bearings and we refined it down to picking the best 3, the low price point, the mid price point, and the high price point. And we share why each one of those could be an ideal decision for the customer.
So let's say you work in inside sales for an industrial parts company that specializes in bearings. And you come into work one morning and you get this email. So you can copy the body of this email and paste it directly into your AI assistant. It will show you the low price option and information about it, the pros and cons and why choose it, the medium priced option and the pros and cons and why you should choose it, and then also the more expensive one. And then along the way, it'll also provide you with how much stock is available so that you can answer the customer in a very thorough way. You can even ask it to help you during the sales process. For example, you may type, "Help me create a phone call script to sell the higher price bearing." And it will provide you the exact information that you can be prepared to make a call with the customer. Then it can even help you with the response. You can even have it write an email for you. You might write an email to Susan at the Saltwater Fishing Company telling her that you found the perfect bearing, tell her why it's the perfect bearing, etc. And it will process that information and send you the exact thing that you requested. And you can copy and paste this email directly into Outlook. So I just hit the copy, which makes everything very easy and very efficient for me. We look forward to meeting you at the
So that was, I hope you found that interesting. I realized that I excluded one of my business cases that I'll try to pull together or pull in when we kind of go through these. But that was really an example of what the newer technologies in terms of AI agents can actually do for you and help in the process. And one other one that I didn't pull in, and looks like I'll have enough time to get to it, is about order processing. And I have a demo of order processing that I'll pull up. But same kind of concept where it's orders come in and then it actually goes and puts the order into the ERP for you. So staying along the lines, sort of some of these bigger ideas. Lisa and I talked about predictive maintenance. I have 2 cases here that are tied into that. And generally, if you get the theme of all of this, it's training on points of failure, and then coming up with a solution that goes along with those points of failure. So in this case, again, this one's back to a refinery process where if the main air blower would go down, it would cause them, significant outage costs and times. And again, you can see on the big letters here, it says it's preventing, $7.5 million worth of losses per shutdown. So the idea is often, machines themselves are they are maintained on a standard cycle, whether it's recommended by the manufacturer or, based upon the history of what people think needs to be done, without really looking at, hey, each of these machines has a series of sensors, and those sensors are putting off information constantly, right? They may be sending error codes, they may be sending all sorts of different information out that indicates, hey, this is likely to fail soon without, but unless you examine that information that's coming out from the machines, you don't know that's going to happen. So you've got it on a cycle, hey, I'm going to change these parts in the next, 60 days, and then it goes ahead and fails early. Um, in this case, the monitoring was very complex. There were literally over 200 data points that were coming out, and there was really no unified monitoring that existed, and so it was causing recurring shutdowns. And so basically, we put something together that had 5 components. It was basically the same thing that I've talked about. It's machine and learning and a comprehensive analysis. We used an anomaly detection algorithm to see, what is most likely happening when there was the interruptions in the systems. And then we created what's called a root cause analysis to basically show, okay, these things are failing because these other things have actually happened. We created predictive models, and then we implemented these AI generated recommendations so that maintenance could be done really when needed versus when scheduled. Um, and the key was the operational maintenance costs were high. We were able to reduce those, and we prevented shutdowns. Pretty much most of the shutdowns have stopped for this issue related to the blowers. That was sort of the key element. And the idea was, hey, create asset availability all the time. So make sure you're maintaining, shifting, pushing it through, and coming out the other side with something that is consistently, looking ahead for something that's going to happen. In any of these cases, in some of them, when I'm producing items like the computer vision ones, I'm focusing on what's getting produced here and now during the course of the line. In the cases of this predictive maintenance, and the other one where we were predicting around the lumps or clumps, it's all about, what is likely to happen with a high probability. So we're going to give you information to take action right now. And that's really what the purpose of those items are. And I have one more that's kind of similar. And I think I might, well, I could skip it. Although in the interesting case of this, the same thing. It's like, hey, we're using cameras, to analyze what's happening with the equipment. We train models of, the activities, and then we actually, in this case, created a tool that they could have out on the shop floor on an iPad that basically they could connect with remote engineers who could actually now look at the same stuff that was being seen locally, and it would give the diagnostics to the engineer who didn't have to come on site to actually go solve the problem. And the people could actually do the work that needed to happen. And again, this was a smaller project, saves about $500,000 a year in terms of helping them with predictive maintenance on the machines. Any questions? I'm going to stop sharing this for a moment because I have one other.
Yep, there is a question from Erica. She's asking, does a certain group tune the agents right away based on your recommendation, or individuals are able to take action right away?
I mean, the answer is that in the case of the agents and in these tools, there is always sort of a continuous learning process that needs to happen. So it's not a set it and forget it. The example of like the ball bearings one, if they change things around the catalogs, then it's got to relearn. If there are new combinations that make sense, that information needs to be, fed in so that the agent can learn it. In the case of, say, the bottles or the tires as something new is produced that is different than, say, the prior year's version for the tires. Now you've got to train the model on what the latest tires are supposed to look like. I don't know if that answers exactly the question, but it is the idea is to give people information to act. It's information to act right now and not to wait.
I was just wondering, so there weren't like the concept too many chefs in the kitchen at one time. So I was wondering, does it make sense? I guess not. I guess in this case, it's okay. It doesn't seem to be as if anyone's stepping on anyone's toes, that you can just do what needs to be done right away and it does not have a negative impact on someone else.
So, I mean, listen, with any software solution or any of these that come in, there's going to be people that are like they're resistant to it because they don't believe it can actually do what it is able to do. And so, what you do during what we've had to do during a lot of these projects is really spend a lot of time with the people who were doing the inspections and the supervisors who had been the people before that had been doing this to make sure that we were getting it right and that they, could buy into it and then be able to, do other work that was higher value, if that was the case. So they're, just like with any software upgrade, there's often resistance to it, if that's what your ask is, but it's all about proof and showing them that, hey, this is highly valuable to both you and the company that you're working for. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. I'll pull one other example up that I think is valuable. Give me a moment.
You're gonna look for your other example?
Yeah, I have it. It's just I closed it because I just somehow didn't bring it into this version of the presentation.
So while you look, so are you, it's such a hot topic, AI is right now. Are you finding like there's just a ton of interest or, what are you seeing out there?
So I'm seeing a lot of interest, but I think, the current political climate um, has a bunch of people hesitating to take action on the current jobs. Not entirely true in some businesses. Like we're doing some work in the hotel industry, and they seem to be really hot on solving the problems, especially because of all the restaurants that they run and the food that they buy. Um, but yeah, and I think the same thing is, with the tariffs, especially. My expectation is we're going to see a lot more interest, but it hasn't. It's just they're still trying to like figure out how do they operate as a company before they make any decisions to go attack it.
Right. Yep, makes sense. Well, I would just say while you're bringing up the other example, I would add that I think that AI is going to be significant in terms of the future and future success. So really, you should not be delaying and waiting to see how things are going to work out because manufacturing is going to um, be revitalized. We just had a speaker last month that was talking about the manufacturing reinvestment that's going on and the increase in manufacturing and supply chain will follow suit. So I would just, recommend that, you figure out what's going to be most meaningful, profitable, and provides the most customer value, but start somewhere and don't delay because you will get left behind. So go ahead, Bruce.
Thank you, thank you. That's a good point. I try not to push that way too much because then people will be like, well, we didn't change before and this didn't affect us. Uh, but I think, like you said, Lisa, I think there are some real challenges and there's a lot of opportunity. I think what's different is that the ability to produce enterprise grade software that actually does really valuable things, especially to help the mid-market. This example that I'm going to give here is that the high end of this market, the systems have actually built in this kind of solution, but the middle portion of the market is really not being solved. I do see the question, but I'll do this and I'll go through that. So this one basically is the idea, and I'm not. So we worked with a leading supplier of metal wall and roof materials, and they just had a problem that they couldn't sustain when they were growing, and they couldn't sustain sort of like getting orders in correctly. And so we kind of had been we had been doing work in customer service for a while, like saying, hey, we can actually identify the intent of a request that's coming in customer service, and then follow the same workflow that a human would follow to actually, get things done. We can actually go look things up in systems. We can, collect that information with other information, merge it together, do some analysis, and create outputs. And so in this case, their growth basically, had unsustainable headcount increases, and they were making errors in the orders, kind of like the ball bearing solution, but this one's actually takes a step further and actually goes and places the orders. And so there's a 24/7 automated order processing system now. And what the staff is now focused on is more of quality assurance, making sure that everything's coming out better, focusing on the relationships with their customers. And it created some significant cost savings. And so, our process for it is understand the current order workflow, uncover bottlenecks, see where there's opportunities, work on a quick win. The systems we're using these days can connect, to the ERP systems and actually try to do an early, kind of trial prototype solution. In this case, we took a high volume customer and were able to literally within really the first week or two, automate their orders. We were able to embed business rules into the solution, and then we actually were able to demo it actually working and feeding directly into the ERP. And then we basically worked with them to broaden the coverage to all their different channels that they go. So now it was interesting at first. It's like, hey, I've got the human in the loop. The human, sees every order before there's ever any response going out. So in a way, they're kind of spending more time checking to make sure they agree with what the AI is actually and automation is doing for them. But that once it's there, it runs pretty well. And I have a demo here. It's about 4 minutes
So
long. Do I have
are they
time to run it?
It's how long did you say?
Well, it says 6 minutes, but I think it's about 4.5 of the value portion of it. Or I can send it so you guys can watch it afterwards. But basically, this shows how it operates. Basically,
And
with a
do
dummy
these
company.
orders come in through a portal or emails or both?
Yeah, exactly. The orders are coming in via email. It takes a PO, it goes and looks it up. It can do fuzzy logic matching against the order item list and then it has rules that say, okay, you ordered this with that. It does go ahead and put the order into the ERP system. And for this demo, we used Microsoft Dynamics as the example. And then what it does is it actually sends an email back that says, hey, here's the order that I created, here's the order number, and here are the conditions that we found within the order that you need to check out before you submit it.
You mean before you approve it?
Before you approve it. Yeah, exactly. So because we used examples of an 8-inch pipe with a 1.5-inch coupling, right? So and say those things don't go together.
Does it ask an internal resource to review it as well?
That's where it goes. Initially, it goes to the person who was manually going and doing the lookups and placing the order. It goes to them first.
Okay.
But then they get comfortable enough with what it's doing they allow the orders to go in, but like if there are concerns, those concerns go back to the client before the order gets processed.
Sure. Okay. That makes sense.
And I can share it since I know we're just about out of time. I can share this as a demo after.
Yeah, and if you're in the if you all want to see it, we can always like stay extra or something. Just let me know, or we can include it for sure in the archive as well.
Got it.
And while we're seeing if somebody has like a strong opinion, do you want to answer the question that they asked as well?
Yeah. So I think that's a great point. I think I've said this a few times now. Nothing is really set it and forget it. You don't have to have an AI expert on staff, but you do have to have a good relationship and understand what has been created, not how it was done, but what it is. And I think the question about fail safes is, especially early on in the process, you want people to be checking everything the AI is telling you that it's recommending. Because again, we design as you're creating a lot of these solutions, you are setting different parameters like, hey, I want more things to go through, or I want things to be more accurate. It's the typical, test of like, do I want to include more items in my solution, or do I want to make sure I only include the items that are accurate? And those are things that you kind of have to, tweak especially during the early and middle. And then you want to have kind of regular check-ins so that things are maintained. And the point, yeah, I mean, the AI can learn as it goes, but it has to be getting information to learn upon, and you want the the changed version of it to be running through either a demo or a test environment before it moves to production. So it can constantly learn, but you don't always want to push the results right away. So you do have to have people who are checking that the AI is doing what's expected as part of your process. And that's part of what the monitoring is that you build and include on top of it.
Well, and I have a question related to that, Bruce. So
Sure.
my understanding, you can tell me, if this is right or not, but I see AI as, if you are a medium to large size company and you have a modern like heavily invested in ERP system, a lot of AI will be included in your ERP system and your related technologies. So for example, like sales forecasting, even cash flow planning,
Inventory
those
management.
inventory replenishment, exactly, will include actually, even for the better systems, like, they'll even say like, what's your run rates been? And they'll update it accordingly, which would be great for many of my clients. But anyway, we have, it will include, that's really included in the ERP system. And then there's related technologies. So we all may do, collect data on the production lines, and there's going to be, systems and equipment that you use to do that, like with MES. There's robotics, there's other autonomous vehicles, there's other types of equipment and technology that supports your business, which you can view it as, I view it as ERP and related technologies. But basically that's where the AI comes from. It's not like you buy AI necessarily, although there could be some AI related software add-ons for sure. And if you're in the small and medium-sized company, like you said, with a less robust ERP system, then you very well may have to add hire AI type experts and or add the appropriate softwares to do those types of tasks with what you already have. Like, obviously we all probably use Microsoft products to some degree, but it's where it's going from there. So a lot of the big names have started to build in some of these features. And then, obviously cameras, you talked about that. That's like related technology in my world. So do you generally speaking agree with what I'm saying, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think you've got it, right on. The big companies have been trying to address this across industries um, for a number of years. Their first versions were not great, but they're getting better. And the likelihood is, as long as you are investing with those companies and spending the time to learn and make the changes, you're going to get value from those solutions that they are already doing. So I wouldn't go out and so much as try to build something on top of the higher end solutions. I would make sure that I'm working with my whoever it is, my customer service, my rep that manages my account, to make sure we're getting new training and getting the latest, updates that are
Right.
available. And you're right, it's that small to mid-size where the companies aren't investing enough to keep up. So then, companies that I've been working with are building solutions to integrate on top of them.
Yeah. Yep. No, that makes sense. And it's challenging when you first start looking at it, but look at what's most meaningful for your business, what'll drive important customer value and or productivity and efficiency in your business is pretty much what Bruce has given us some great examples of paths that you can go down and like some substantial results that go with it. So, I by no means think that, of course, the problem is always whether you have the cash and or capital. However, these types of approaches will free up cash and
That's
capital.
the whole idea.
So
It's
it
like
is,
you got to look at you got to look at your capital budget and say, okay, do we, how are we going to fund something that's going to give us a 20% increase in efficiency, knowing
true.
that the cost of not doing it, is pretty high.
True. I mean, it's going to be a challenge here because like the larger companies have more scale and the ability to invest. And so, but on the other hand, as always is true, the smaller companies that are willing to be innovative and resilient will succeed and can certainly pass them by. They have to be a bit more collaborative and creative, but they're going to also have to take a few risks, at least
Is
from what
it
I can see.
is it open for questions or comments in
Yeah.
general?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead and
Yeah, sure.
Well,
ask a
well,
question.
I think AI has been around in some form or another for a long, long time. Personally, I could look back to 1980, and a guy called Bernie Smith wrote a book called Focused Forecasting. I had him come to our chapter, and actually run a workshop for a day. Um, and there he was really talking about, and didn't have the words for it. It was an expert system, but he didn't have the words to describe it. And then around 1984, the AI community that exists, which was very experimental, the language Lisp got in the way, and they knew they couldn't make any money, so they had to depend on convert their thinking into using conventional languages, etc. And then a group called Carnegie Group came out, and they did a configurator, an engineering configurator for digital equipment. And so there's always been there, but the biggest constraint, and it went on and on and on, it marched through, we had Goldrat with Opt, which was nothing more than an expert system, right? That's really what it was, but he made it a black box so he could sell software. From that evolved a really nice, interesting viewpoint of how do you organize your factory, etc. But as early as 1987, you could buy commercially available software, expert systems, VP Expert, if anybody's a historian, was out. And the logic behind that was you take the output of ERP and you take your very, very best planners and you collect the rules. And for $150, you export it to your desktop with a really big, robust machine. And it would do forward and backward planning with explanation. And so it would validate everything. And then you had red pepper. So so the point here is that in some form or another, readily available and affordable, particularly with a VP Expert on, AI's been there. The real breakthrough has been this amount of computing power
Yeah.
computing power. I remember with red pepper, they could take 8 conflicting objectives and try to resolve a reasonable schedule. They never called it perfect. But the biggest issue they had all the time was where they ran out of memory. They couldn't find a machine big enough with memory. And so I think the explosion of all these different technologies, uh, AI technologies or forms has taken place mainly because we have all this computing power. I mean,
Yeah,
it's just,
you're absolutely right. I
so
mean,
so it's not new. So if you had a company with 50 people or 25 people back in 1987, and if you really wanted to, you could have taken your very best planner, sat there and captured the rules and input it into VP Expert. You'd have to have someone help you to extract from MRP exceptions, how to load it into the VP Expert through their interface. And you would be using AI in 1987. So I think its use in current form is a bit demystifying because it does so many things. The large language models really just go out, scrape the internet and scrape journals and stuff. So I just want to make that comment about this isn't that new, it's just continually evolving thanks to computing and the fact, and people are building on their knowledge base one level at a time. When you talk about agents, I'm going, what's the difference between an agent and an expert system?
There really isn't.
Okay,
yeah,
so the words have changed. The words have
The
changed.
words have changed. Yeah, I mean, when I started, doing this, it's like, I worked with mathematicians and statisticians, right, who eventually became data scientists, are now known as AI engineers.
Right,
But it was all about, math and predictions. I worked on systems in the 90s, that for parts distribution for auto manufacturers. And what were we doing? We were taking
right,
historical data. We were predicting, what should be the stocking amounts in each of the warehouses so that we could give
right,
information to the dealers so that they would know how much they needed to buy and keep on hand. Right. So
right.
it's, we call that traditional AI now. It's sort of the,
Mhm.
the way to talk about it. But I mean, it was forecasting and, and what do larger language models do? Their job is to predict the next word, right? So it's all about
Right,
classification and
right,
prediction. And you're right, Preston, it's very large. It's the computing power and the models and how they've been structured have changed. Both things have changed.
yeah,
It's not,
right.
there's
Be-
it's an evolution that's enabled people who have never worked in the space and people who aren't even developers to create amazing tools.
right. I've been looking at Perplexity as a cheap way of doing it because they have 4 or 5 different models. You can choose which model you want for that kind of query. And
Right.
it has citations, which means you can test its logic, how it came up with stuff. So, but
yeah,
that's not solving a problem. Its point is that someone could get introduced to AI by subscribing for $20 a month. People really are interested in chat GTP, was it GTP?
GPT.
But
Yeah.
apparently it gets so creative that it starts to make up stuff. So,
yeah. It has
yeah,
done that for me. I mean, if it doesn't know the answer, it will make up something it thinks is should be right. But the problem is, like,
yeah,
I was trying to get some answer on an ERP specific question, and it made up an answer that wasn't true. But it does that. But nevertheless, it's still like,
it's a learning tool.
it'll learn, and it's going to be the future. But you absolutely are correct. I did some research recently for some of my articles, but like the computational power required for AI is like doubling every 100 days. So like,
Right.
and now there's like this boom or whatever you want to call it of data centers, and that's why we have so much emphasis on electricity and energy to power all this so that we can so we can utilize AI, if you will, to automate and predict, right? Because it's like these days we really want it to be, I guess, agentic, right, is the thing, but it just like you said, Preston, it's really the same thing. It's funny, like every software, they're like, oh, I do AI. And I'm like, oh, great. Like, I want to see that.
What
And
does
I'm
that
like, well,
mean?
wait a minute. This is the
Well,
same thing I did 20 years ago. What are you talking about,
right,
AI?
right.
Yeah, I mean, and
It-
if you looked at the things that I presented on, there was really only a few that actually use the current technologies, but the later technologies with the LLMs. Everything else was, hey, it's these things, the models have advanced and the computing power is advanced so that you
Yep.
can do a better job, especially in that whole quality control and predictive maintenance area. I think those
right,
are ones where it's nothing new. It's
right,
just that you can do a better job than you used to be able to.
right. The only thing
Yep. Very true.
disturbing about the AI developments is the large data centers and the computing power. And the only way to match that you can see it when you look at what Google and Microsoft is doing. They're actually financing and advocating nuclear for the power. And
Yep.
so that's putting us in, they're advocating the next generation, which hasn't really been proven yet, of reactors. So it's kind of a very interesting and very scary time that people haven't even really thought about.
That's right.
Yeah, it's
That's
true.
Yeah.
Staying on the leading edge of AI won't be simple.
Yeah, it's everybody says like, oh, you're an expert. I'm like, I know more than a bunch of people because I spend time in it every day and there's always new products coming out that I'm evaluating, but it's impossible to be an expert because there's too much information and too many things available.
Mhm.
So it's more about helping people navigate to the best solution for them rather than, and a lot of times you have to go do research that's because you don't know it. They'll be
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
hey, there's this product and I've been evaluating it. I'm like, well, I never heard of that before.
Well, and I see, as an example, I see Elizabeth Warren on this webinar with us. She's part of our board. But anyway, I know that they utilize AI in the ports and the whole global logistics arena as well. So
Mhm.
it's spread. There's a bunch of opportunities throughout. The end-to-end supply chain is vast.
All
Yes.
right. The greatest AI tool right now is there's an organization, actually 50 collaborative organizations that have gotten together and they're using satellite probes and domain experts and all kinds of scientists around, but they can actually determine who's polluting, how much, and where, and they have mapped out the entire maritime pollution output. They actually discovered we have 20% more garbage dumps emitting methane than previously known. So there's all kinds of interesting things going on. But the enabler there has been AI, and not just the satellites with sniffers for methane. They now have methane sniffers that can get from the source up to 100 feet away from the source within a radius of so much. So with the satellites and the AI combining all these inputs, they're able to draw these conclusions. If you're
Yeah.
interested, I could direct you to the organization that's doing this. And I think Al Gore is the one that led the foundation of this. And it's like 50 companies that have pledged never to actually try to make a commercial profit off of what their outcomes. They all have different expertise and they've created a consortium. But
I
it's
Sure,
think the
maybe
other
you could
thing,
like send me a link and I can always include it in the
sure.
the recap.
I was going to do with for my sustainability group. I just haven't gotten around to do it because it's really, but they've mapped out the entire world, particularly maritime stuff. So for the first time, we know who's polluting because it's kind of hard because you have all these ghost tankers that aren't registered, but they know
Yep.
where everything's at one time, thanks to the satellites and AI. But
just one other quick
Interesting.
comment you said about the computing power. The other thing is that the sensors and the cameras have gotten better and so
right,
much cheaper than they were. So actually, there are companies that literally focus on just, hey, your outfit, whatever your plant is not, doesn't have the sensors, but we can come in like for maybe 1/10 the price of what it was a few years ago
Wow.
and put in the equipment that's required to then actually run the AI to do the analysis.
Well,
So yeah,
that's a good place to start for folks who are like
right.
listening and or watching in the archives, like start with getting some base equipment that you'll need.
Well, you don't even have to do that with this organization because they could sniff and tell you who's a polluter and how much.
Right,
They,
right. For
they
that, for
literally,
your situation, I was just saying for inside
but
the
in
plant.
general.
In
yeah,
general.
in general, yeah, in general. But I'm sorry, but I just really, I've always been enthusiastic, particularly when I met Bernie Smith in about 1980, and then the Carnegie Group, and then Red Pepper, and it just kept on growing. And it's just amazing that it's exploded but really what's happened now is it's looking at different ways of getting, it's vision, it's voice, it's all kinds of stuff.
Well, there'll be definitely a lot of opportunities. Well, very good. I see we're at the top of the hour already. So hopefully, Bruce, I don't know if you have one last comment, and I'm going to tell us about our next webinar. So go ahead if you had.
Just, as you're looking and thinking, you can use the examples that I provided, but, don't hesitate to reach out with questions on what's possible, because I think that's really where it is today is like what we thought we couldn't do before. I remember quickly, it was a few years ago, I was looking at building an agent that could, tell people things about their health, and the just the prototype was going to cost me 250,000, and they had estimated about 2 million to build it. We built a version for about 50 grand that was a fully fledged tool that could actually do it, and now you could do it for even less. So that's
Wow.
the, and
That is
again,
amazing, but you're absolutely right. That's a really good point. I like that as far as leaving
and you
everyone
need
with
to
that thought.
tell the AI what not to do, especially when you're working with a large language model, so it won't make up answers. If you're very specific about your prompts, you
Oh,
can
it's a good
tell it
idea.
to not do the things you don't
Good
want it to
idea.
do. It's
I'll
like,
do that
if
next
you
time.
don't have specific information, don't give me something. Tell
Okay.
me you couldn't find it, but don't tell me an answer and make
Oh,
stuff
I
up.
like that idea. Thanks for that tip.
No, you're
That'll help
welcome.
me anyway.
Yeah, that's part of the standard classes when you actually learn how to run prompts, is you need to tell it. It's like, imagine it's like a super intelligent child that has no direction. And so now you give it stuff and it's like, oh, I don't know what to do. And the agentic
Yep.
version starts to make decisions for you. That's what they're really about. But again, the trust level is not there yet.
All right. Well, thank you very much to Bruce Hoffman. We appreciate it. We will post the webinar in our archives, and also, the slide deck if you're okay with sharing them, Bruce. And stay tuned for our next webinar on June 13th. It's going to be a transportation market update. So, from a global logistics point of view. So that should be very interesting, especially with all the tariffs and hoopla going on. So stay tuned. And also, it was great to see some of you at our event this last month, our industry event and member appreciation event. So we'll stay tuned, and we'll see you again at our next one later this year. Thank you all, and thank you again to Bruce, and we'll see you again next month.
Thank you. Bye.